This is John for the Everyday Fan. Today, I have the pleasure of being on the beat with Rocket Pro Wrestling GM Damien Saint. How are you, sir?
Good. How about yourself, sir?
Good. I'm sorry. Should I call you Mr. GM or GM Sir or
Preferably Mr. Saint.
Mr. Saint? That works for me. So, Mr. Saint, tell me a little bit about your background. How did you get into wrestling?
I had actually gotten into wrestling from an old friend of mine who was in the business for a short while. When I came in 2017, I met up with Ox Baker Jr., who actually took me on the road with him, and I trained with him for a year. After that, I had got the pleasure of learning how to referee from Justin King, former WWE referee. Been able to do a lot of seminars, learn from a lot of great people like Earl Hebner, Jerry Lynn, Bob Evans, Tim Hughes, Adam Rose, Billy Gunn. The list can really go on, even to like J.J. Dillon and Barry Windham.
Interesting names there. And actually, I'm very familiar with both Ox Jr. and Mr. King. I worked with both of them years ago at Resistance Pro. So both good dudes.
Okay.
What was your interest in wrestling? What was your draw? Why did you want to get involved?
So when I was a kid, I was kind of one of those little geeky kids. I was popular, but didn't know I was popular. So I just stayed geeky and nerdy. And I think it's like third grade. There's a kid who moved to our school, got into our class. He was the first person who ever mentioned a word about professional wrestling. I had no idea what it was. Turned on that night after I remember that he mentioned it. I saw maybe 5 minutes of it, and I had to go to bed. Took me another 3 weeks to remind myself to ask the kid again, where was WWF Raw? Once you remind me, I started watching again. And first night I fully watched, I think was the night after the Royal Rumble where Austin 316 was born.
Wow. Okay. So who were your guys back then? Who were your first big wrestling favorites?
Stone Cold first and foremost. With Stone Cold, it was amazing. It was just one of those things where he was just that blue collar badass. And I came up in a blue collar family, a union family. And so having someone like Austin that you can even relate to remotely was just fun growing up with. After Austin, it was definitely Shawn Michaels and Triple H with D-Generation X.
Can't
And then
argue with
was in
that.
China, and I love China. I thought she was amazing. I thought she's the greatest thing in professional wrestling besides DX and Austin. Over time, got to fall in love with guys like Mankind and The Rock and Undertaker, but it was always Austin first.
Have you ever met any of your favorites?
I actually have gotten to drive a couple of guys I grew up watching from airports and the shows and around the area. Jake the Snake Roberts, Shane Helms and Gilbert, Mengan Barbarian, Ricky Reyes, Robbie E. I think that's about all I've had in my car driving around.
Well, how surreal is that though? Yeah, I mean, you're driving guys like Jake the Snake Roberts.
Man, that was just a trip in general. Because we were doing a show out in South Bend, Indiana. So it's about 2 hours away from where we are out here by Chicago. So took Jake that night to do a autograph signing in Chicago at Pro Wrestling Tees. And the night, take him out to South Bend, drop off at his hotel, and then meet him at the show the next day. Jake is a riot, to say the least. The dude is, I know he does his own stand-up comedy, but to sit in a car with him and just listen to him just talk and go. Like my old buddy who got me in the business, he was with me at the time. And after the autograph signing, got in the car, set the drive out to South Bend. I'm exhausted. I let my buddy drive the car. I lay down in the back. Jake's in the front passenger. And all I hear from the front is right on the start, like side of my car. My head pops up. I'm thinking someone hit us. My buddy's freaking out, and Jake is just sitting there laughing. Huh? Made you think we hit a kid. Dude, it's 10 o'clock at night. Why would I think we're hitting a kid?
He's an original, man.
Oh, he is.
I can't. I've had talks with Jake, various interviews, but never anything like a 2 hour car ride. I can't even imagine that. That would be an experience.
It really was. There was a lot of great opportunity of learning from someone like Jake, who's been in the business as long as he has and is as successful as he has. But just to hear him just BS and just shoot the shit.
So how long have you been with Rocket Pro? How did you get into Rocket Pro?
So funny thing with Rocket Pro is actually 25 minutes away from my house. Rocket Pro Wrestling has been around for 5 years. I actually came into Rocket Pro probably 3 years ago, even with being so close. When I first started the business, everything I was doing was out around Pro Wrestling King and EHF. You know the area, South Bend area. And I was working that area as hard as I could. I was getting out to Ohio, up to Michigan, Southern Indiana. And I had this mindset of, I had always heard about the 100 milers, you know them, the guys who never travel outside the area. And when I first came into the business, I always heard about that. And I swore I would never be that guy. Chicago is pro wrestling home in general. It is probably one of the loudest and rowdiest crowds you will ever go to, and they are the most die-hard professional wrestling fans I've ever seen or even had the pleasure to be part of. With that being said, anything I do to be successful. Everything I aim to be successful at, I aim to be the best. And Chicago is probably one of the best professional wrestling areas. So when I first started, I never worked anywhere close to Chicago unless it was over 2 hours away. For sheer fact, I wanted to get outside the area first. I wanted to work on my craft of managing and reffing. And then when I felt I was at a good point, I wanted to bring back to Chicago. And Rocket Pro Wrestling's out in Joliet, again, 25 minutes away from where I live, a Chicagoland area. It's where I grew up. So when I got the opportunity to go out there as a referee starting, I jumped at it.
Now, managing and reffing are two completely opposite things. People don't realize sometimes exactly how much work a referee has to do. So how are you able to learn both of those crafts seemingly kind of at the same time?
It's funny because I grew up doing theater, and I've always loved theater. I always loved movies. And I was the weird kid who studied the psychology of the TV shows, of how the plot was going to lay out, of especially with professional wrestling. I would start to be able to predict who was coming out when, who was going to be so-and-so's opponent, how they were going to win, if it could be clean or dirty. But that's because I focused so much on the psychology, and that was really my key focus when I came into business, which really helped me so much with managing and refereeing. Because like you said, yes, I did come up doing both of them pretty much at the same time. Never at the same place, except for one promotion that was weird, but that's a different story. But to learn managing on one hand and learn refereeing on the other hand, again, simultaneously, it's a different art. Because I learned how to wrestle a little bit, but years ago, I used to serve in the Army. When I got in the Army, they told me I had arthritis in the back. So I've always been very protective about my back in general. So while growing up, I always wanted to be a wrestler. I never took that jump, but when I got opportunity for managing and reffing, of course, I grabbed it. But it's weird to learn both at the same time because on one hand, 9 times out of 10 as a manager, you're always going to be the heel. You're a mouthpiece. You're there to make the fans hate you and make the fans hate whoever is standing next to you. While in contrast, the referee, I've always considered the referee to be the narrator of the match almost. Like how in some movies you have a narrator, that's what the referee is. It's essentially keeping the peace. You know you're going to side a little bit more with the good guy, but that is until the heel does so much dirty shit that you just want to see them get their own come up at the same time. It's a weird dynamic of learning how to be the bad guy while learning how to be neutral, but essentially both jobs are still the same of there to help boost up the in-ring talents.
Is either job easier?
Depends on the show.
Okay, fair enough.
I've had some shows as a referee where I've walked in the door and been told, hey, the other referee has canceled. can you Iron Man tonight? And I'll do 9 matches in a row. I've had nights as a manager where I would do 3 matches in a night. Vice versa, I've had nights of refereeing where they were the easiest matches and I only had 3. And I've had nights of managing where all I had to do was just get in the microphone and make some people hate me. Each of them have ups and downs. They really do. But they are so much fun. Because one thing I will say that helped me learn compared to the modern professional wrestler, and this is not a shot at anyone or anything like that, so please don't take it that way. But a lot of guys in the ring have a hard time listening to the fans. They get so caught up in what's going on in their matches, of what they're going to do next, of what their plan of attack is going to happen next, that they tune out the fans almost. It's almost like a tunnel vision. So for managing and reffing, while I'm paying attention to what's going on in the ring, majority of my focus is actually going on what's going on with the fans, of how they're reacting. Because as a referee, if the fans are dying down and the match is slowing down and they're slowly starting to lose them, I can just lean in and go, hey, pick it up, sell to the fans, work the hard cam. And it's as simple as that, and the fans never catch it. While with managing, the time I pipe up is the moment the fans get quiet. So whether the match is going hard or slowing down, my focus is strictly on the fans. A little bit on the ring talent, trying to keep the character going and the story going of what we need to have happen. But essentially, it's all about the fans.
Now, there's a lot of managers out there on the independent scene. There's a lot of famous managers, Bobby Heenan, Jim Cornette, all those guys. But the reffing is real interesting. Did you study a lot of the? I mean, I know you mentioned Mr. King. Have you studied other refs to check out their styles, what they do, and then not necessarily steal what they do, but kind of incorporate some of what they do into your routine?
A lot of Earl Hebner for me. Again, I got to learn from Justin King, so I've studied a lot of his stuff. Nick Patrick, of course, I always thought he was a great referee, and he developed in his own character, which I really appreciated. Teddy Long, again, referee to general manager. Those are probably the main ones, but I will say I'm almost 6 foot. I'm just under 200 pounds. I'm about the size as the average worker nowadays that you see in the ring. So when I get the ref and when I have the pleasure of reffing, I get to add that dynamic of I'm the referee that doesn't back down from in-ring talent, because I'm probably just as big as them, if not a little bit bigger. So it's nice when you get to see on the indies a lot of times the referees, they're always afraid. And I understand it. They might get punched in the face. No one wants to get punched in the face, right? But when you're the same size as they are, they're less likely to swing. I got a better chance of controlling the match, of keeping my authority going, of stopping the heel from the cheating, and making sure the match is going through safely.
Now, you brought up Teddy Long. Teddy Long went from reffing to managing to GM. You share that in common with him. Now you're the GM at Rocket Pro. How did that come to be, and what are your goals? What are your plans?
So since May of last year at Rocket Pro Wrestling, Kicks on 66, where is the controversial chair shot heard around Joliet of when I smacked a chair into the back of Chris Logan and helped the Fabulous Idols win the match. I've explained to the fans in person, but I feel like they don't fully understand because they still think I'm an idol, which I've never once have said I'm an idol. But if you don't mind, John, I have no problem taking this moment and really breaking it down to the fans so they can actually understand my mindset.
It's all yours.
So when I first came to Rocket Pro Wrestling 3 years ago, again, we all know I came in as a referee. My first night, I Iron Man. Not a big deal. I can deal with that. The second show I was at, I got punched in the face with a fist covered with a steel chain. Out for probably, I think, 6-7 minutes.
Wow. Not a good night.
No, not a great night. And thankfully, that was my last match of the night. But finished the match, counted the 1, 2, 3, got in the back, went to go see the trainer and the medic. And the one person from the whole locker room who never came in to check on me was Jay Beck, the former general manager. I've seen him go to the medic and to the trainers to go check on talent, to go check on guys like Turtle, Aaron Stone, Sean Danger even. But I never once saw J-Back go check on one of the referees ever. From the times I've been hit with a steel chain to where I've been thrown out the ring, I've been picked up, I've been chokeslammed, I've been knocked unconscious. I've had the referee Michael Myers and get chokeslammed from Michael Myers in a different year. Never once did J-Back ever give a damn. Never once did J-Back ever give me a raise. Never once did J-Back show any interest in his referees. Fast forward to May of this year, Rocket Pro Wrestling. Control the company, Idols versus Team RPW. Unfortunately, referee Nate, who I love Nate dearly, got knocked out. J-Back ran the back. He could have grabbed Christian, but he grabbed me. I go out there, I go to do my job, I do my best to do it fairly. I try to stop Gunner Bray from using a chair. I got thrown in the corner. I get back up and I turn around and there's Chris Logan crawling to Gunner. And Gunner seems to be unconscious. The fans are going crazy. They know what's going to happen next. Well, they think they know what's going to happen next. And then I noticed his steel chair. And I went to go get rid of it. And it kind of hit my thoughts. If J-Beck isn't in control anymore, then someone who can be better for the company can get control of it. Now, I never really gave a damn about Joey having ownership or whatever it is of the company that technically I gave him. But there was no collusion. There was no master plan behind it all. It really was, I saw an opportunity and I took it. And I took the summer to kind of quiet down, let things be a little bit more peaceful. And then September 1st, I met up with Joey, with my lawyer, Eric Schultz, because I had an idea of, I just gave him control of the company. Does he really want to deal with the ins and outs, with the responsibility of show the show work? Or someone who is far superior than J-Beck could take over? Again, no master plan, no collusion, no conspiracy theory. I saw an opportunity and I took it.
So it's not really about taking sides. Well, it is taking sides. It's taking your own side.
Yes.
Fair enough. And what has the reaction been then from either side of the locker room?
The Idols like me, but they seem to be a little bit cautious, and I can't really blame them because once people get to learn who I am, they realize if it doesn't benefit me, if it doesn't benefit Rocket Pro Wrestling, I'm probably not gonna give a damn, and I'm probably gonna get pissed off.
So your ultimate goal is still, aside from self-service, your ultimate goal still is the good of Rocket Pro Wrestling?
Absolutely. If Rocket Pro Wrestling dies, then that's one less place for Damien Saint to work. If Rocket Pro Wrestling closed doors today, that's one less place for the fans to see Damien Saint. It's in my best interest to keep the company going. Because essentially, while, yes, I am only the general manager, I do not have ownership of the company or anything like that. The more I can help Rocket Pro Wrestling grow as a company, as a brand, as its own merchandise, the more money Rocket Pro Wrestling makes, the more money I can make on my contract with Rocket Pro Wrestling.
That seems to make a lot of sense.
It's
Going
simple
forward,
business, and the fans are just so angry. I don't understand it.
well, they're rabid. I was at the show in September, and I honestly have never seen I've never seen a crowd that into it the entire night from start to finish. I heard a lot of great things about Rocket Pro for a long time. I saw my first show there, and I was impressed by pretty much everything, which is why I want to continue covering you guys. Just like you want Rocket Pro to grow and you're doing your part, I want Rocket Pro to grow from my end. Speaking of growing, the next show, November 5th, Harvest Havoc. What do you have planned for that show?
So a couple of weeks ago, I did release a video or a little announcement about that night. Again, we do have Christian Rose, current Rocket Pro Wrestling Heavyweight Champion, defending his title against Cody James in a street fight. We will have Turtle versus Rockin' Rivera for the Chicagoland title. We will have No Coast in some capacity. I have them booked for a match. I really hope they get the shit together because I'm not going to keep paying them if they don't do the job. What else? We also have Gunner Brave in a fatal four-way for the Outer Limits Championship. And then our main event. Bad Buns, Jay Fowler, Shaq Jordan, Aaron Stone, and recently added Quinn Whittick. And a ladder match, and not just any ladder match. It's a Rocket to the Top briefcase. I'm sure you're familiar with the concept of Money in the Bank.
Absolutely.
Essentially, same concept. You have 1 year to cash in. But unlike WWE, we only do 9 shows a year from September through May. June, July, and August, we take off to start planning the next season. But our main events, that I think will steal the night.
And not that
essentially, it's going to be whoever walks out with the briefcase is almost guaranteed the heavyweight championship. As we've seen in the past, it works just about every time.
And not that you'll reveal anything, but do you have any surprises in store for the evening?
No, not really.
I'm not sure I believe that, though. So I guess fans are going to have to come out and see it, though.
Oh, no, they absolutely need to come out and see it. I mean, I just named up maybe half the card. There are still another 3-4 matches that I haven't even announced right here. The fans definitely need to come out and see it. They've learned, with just under my guidance, under my hand, for 2 months in a row, which is unprecedented with Rocket Pro in the last 5 years, we've gotten the standing room only. That has never happened 2 months in a row previously.
And the common denominator?
Absolutely me. I have no problem taking the blame on that, or the fault in that, or the pride in that, or whatever you want to call it.
Well, you know me, I'm unbiased, but if I'm looking at this, looking at the facts, I'd have to agree with you on that. I can't disagree.
I appreciate that, my friend.
Before I let you go, sir, first of all, I do want to thank you for your service. But before I let you go, is there anything you want to promote? Tell them where they could find you or Rocket Pro.
This Sunday, actually, Ileana Pro Wrestling, that will be going on. I know we also have Revolution Championship Wrestling out in South Bend. I'm not there this month, but I believe I am back next month. Again, we know about Rocket Pro Wrestling November 5th. December 10th, Chicagoland Championship Wrestling, where I am one of the head referees over there and part of the front office. Such a great place to work. But we're actually doing a trifecta show, which is, again, around Chicago, not heard of very often. But the kicker is, it's going to be Chicagoland Championship Wrestling, Wrestle League, and Dragon Gate from down in Mexico. Doing a show up in Homewood.
That's going to be amazing.
I mean, John, seriously, you know the local talent. You know the talent that I'm able to bring in a Rocket Pro, the talent that comes in the Chicagoland, some of the guys who have come up through Wrestle League. Now you take an international company like Dragon Gate and you bring that to Chicago. Bob Evans actually said it best. What happens in Chicago for professional wrestling, especially Wrestle League, it's called Strong Style Southside, or Southside Strong Style. I think that's what it was. Now take Southside Strong Style and you put that with Dragon Gate with Lucha. It's money.
Once again, I can't disagree with you, sir. Well, I appreciate your time. I very much appreciate your time. I encourage everyone to go out and check out Harvest Havoc, November 5th, Saturday, in beautiful Joliet. Fantastic crowd. Get there early because the crowd is big, loud, insane, and the show is fantastic. Check out all the other great wrestling you mentioned, because really, like you said, Chicago right now is the hotbed of wrestling, and we can't get enough of it. So, Mr. Saint, I appreciate your time, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Absolutely, my friend. I greatly appreciate you having me.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.